the set, rolling.
Hi, I am Bitsy Telek.
Hey, I'm Hale Appleman.
I'm Walter Kane.
I'm Rene Aubergenois, Odo on Deep Space Nine.
Michael Dorn, Lieutenant Commander Worf, Star Trek The Next Generation.
Come and see me and hear me and talk to me and listen to me talk about myself.
Hey man, this is Kevin Smith, often considered generally nerdy, and you are listening to what is often considered generally nerdy.
On Generally Nerdy.
You're listening to
Generally Nerdy.
Generally nerdy.
Generally nerdy.
Bob Morley, yes?
Yes.
Awesome. From soap operas in Australia to primetime television in the States, how's your transition been?
It sounds quick on that, but it was like,
it was a long time in Australia. There was a lot of work.
Yeah, 10, 13 years of work before I even thought about coming to the States. But the transition has been, it's a real eye-opener in terms of the way that, I guess the role of the actor is treated, and or I guess I would say it's more coveted in the States.
Sure.
For me, like being in Australia, working on an Australian production, there'd be 12 of the main cast in a room as small as this, and that'd be our green room. And then I got to the set of The 100, and they're like, "Oh, this is your trailer." I'm like, "Oh, so everyone shares it?" And they're like, "No, that's yours." I was like, "Are you kidding me?"
No.
So I mean, that's been really nice. But the transition has been really interesting. I mean, the show's been received really well, which is a relief, and
congratulations on the renewal too.
Yeah, this just happened yesterday. So
yeah,
it's pretty exciting, and I guess I've never really been on something of this kind of scale. Australia's a lot smaller than the States.
Right.
And, there's only so many shows you can do back at home, whereas here, the world has just kind of opened up so much more since working.
Has that been affected by the nomination for the Teen's Choice Award?
No, not really. I didn't even really know about that too much. I just went there for free food. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to. I don't know how to answer that.
Fair enough. No, that's just as good an answer as any. So one thing we talk about a lot on my podcast is social issues, gender roles, especially in the culture. Would you say there's a big difference in pop culture down in Australia versus in the States as far as how women and minorities and stuff are represented in the culture?
Look, I think it's even hard to say for me as an Australian and working in the industry that where we're telling Australian stories. I don't even think there's enough space for Australian stories, regardless of gender, race, or religion. I think there is some sort of quota where there's only has to be 15% of content in Australia and that could be wrong.
Right.
But from memory, it was something like that. 15% of content on Australian TV or radio had to be Australian. And that could be news or it could be reality TV.
Right.
So in terms of representing the Australian story, it doesn't really happen that much in Australia. We get a lot of American content and a lot of British content.
Right.
So, I mean, that was always a sore point for me as an actor in Australia because we didn't really have much of a voice. You'd shoot a movie in Australia and wouldn't even get a general release. And it's kind of tough. And compared to the States, I don't necessarily watch that much TV in the States.
Fair enough.
In fact, I just kind of watch documentaries and stuff that's on Netflix.
That's good stuff to watch.
I just kind of got caught up in Winter on Fire. This one called Russian Woodpecker, and then someone put me onto The Staircase. Have you ever seen that? And the Jinx.
I haven't actually.
The Jinx is insane. It's like
the last one I was aware of was the documentary for Room 237. Yeah.
I watched that. There's some pretty out there theories on that one. It was interesting. I stayed in Yosemite at the Awani Hotel, and apparently that's where Kubrick stayed, and he remodeled the grand entrance to that place as the writing room.
Right.
Because I walked in there, I was like, "This is the weirdest hotel I've been in," and they're like, "Yeah, it's like The Shining." And I was like, "Right, okay."
And there's also the Stanley here in Colorado.
Yeah, right. Yep. There's one here. Is that where they shot the exteriors?
Yep.
Yeah. Cool.
So you were talking about the difference between Australian cinema and cinema in the States, how there's not a whole lot of Australian cinema. What has been the fan reaction when you were in Australia, because there's not a lot for you to have done. Like, obviously, it's going to be more drastic here, but what was it like down in Australia doing?
It was, I mean, I hadn't done cons until I did one in Australia, and I was really surprised at the community there. And the community that do come to the cons are very, like, positive and welcoming. So the ones that I did in Melbourne and Sydney, they were quite big, and it was exciting to see that there was that culture in Australia that I had never really had my eyes open to before. So yeah, I think I was just kind of, I had my eyes shut to it, and I was a little bit ignorant to, you know, what how
present nerd culture was, and how
and I, you know, like, and I was always into like Ghost in the Shell and Akira and all that kind of stuff.
Wonderful anime.
Yeah, and you know, the Ninja Scroll, and I was like, everything's here.
There's
I was
a
like,
culture here.
Yeah, and I just thought that was, you know, I didn't really know many of my other friends that got interested in that. So, yeah, it's I have a lot of fun at this convention.
That's awesome.
Yeah, cool.
I'm glad you've been having a good experience here.
Yeah, everyone here is lovely.
Awesome.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks, Dustin.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, no worries.
Got strapped to another man. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Just wasn't his way.